Hmm? Good evening and welcome to the October 28th Curriculum Subcommittee of the Brockton School Committee. First order of business, we'll call the roll to establish a quorum. The Chair, Mayor Sullivan. Here. Okay. And Vice Chair here. Ms. Asak.
Here.
And Mrs. Mendez.
Here.
Okay, I don't see Mr. Minicello. Mr. Rodriguez.
Here.
Mrs. Sullivan. Mr. Sullivan.
Here.
Okay, we have a quorum.
Chairman, Vice Chairman,
Yes.
would you take a moment of silence as Superintendent Watson, Uncle Al Thomas, and his services today of Russell Peter, and out of respect for the superintendent and his family, I think it'd be important to take a moment of silence.
Absolutely.
And you rest in peace. Our thoughts and family. You family members. Thank you.
Okay. All right, so for our curriculum subcommittee meeting agenda tonight, we have presentation of school-based strategic improvement plans from both South Middle and Brookfield Elementary School.
So, June, you want us to lay out
You want to get us started?
set the stage? Sure. So we have South tonight and
June, these got a mic for you up there. Oh, no, we got one.
you can just go to Tom's seat.
So is it working? Yep. Okay, so yes, we have South Middle School and the Brookfield Elementary School joining us tonight to give you an overview of their school sustainable improvement plans. These are plans that have recently been approved by the Department of Education. And so we're going to start with South, so I'll turn it over to Jose.
Thank you, June. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Vice Chair, Mr. Superintendent Thomas, and all of you.
Jose, you can use the handheld. I'll give you this one.
Okay, all right.
Now you have to press the button. Grab that. And we're
All right, is this better? Way better, right? So I'll just say again, good evening, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Vice Chair, Mr. Superintendent Thomas, and members of the committee. Thank you for the opportunity to come before you to present to you our sustainable improvement plan on behalf of our children and our staff and our families. Hopefully today, we will, by the end of this presentation, can you click the next one? By the end of the presentation, the school committee will be knowledgeable about this middle school improvement sustainable plan. It's a comprehensive plan that we have spent quite a bit of time doing it, so hopefully you'll have a good understanding of it. We're going to do that by setting the context, talking a little bit about how we got there. We're going to talk about the process we went through to develop this sustainable improvement plan, and then we'll talk about the current status and what our next steps will be. I think it is the knowledge of all here and the educational community as a whole that we got to the point that we are today because of years of chronic underperformance. Here we have for you only the 2019 status, results from the standardized test in the MCAS, but as you can see across the board, we're in a state where we're declining in our performance every year for a variety of reasons. So when I arrived sometime last year, only feels like it was yesterday, the superintendent and the chief academic officer came, and we had a conversation about needing to do something different on behalf of the school. And for me, that was great because the entry plan that I had brought with me when I came was also framed around the 4-1 practices of the district. So that's what I launched, but then shortly after, the DESE through the SSOS came and began to work with us on putting together plans. So on the next few steps, my colleagues will talk to you about the process that we went through to develop a plan, and then we'll close it out by talking about the current plan and the steps that we are taking right now. So we have 4 other people here who will speak after me, and then we will get to meet some of the other teachers through the power of video. So, John, or who's next? Lisa? Who's next? All right, so Ms. Maisha Leguia, a science teacher with us, a member of the instructional leadership team, will introduce some of the videos and talk to you about the next steps.
Good evening. As Mr. Duarte said, my name is Maisha Laguerre. I am a middle school science teacher at South, and I'm part of the Instructional Leadership Committee. The following videos that you're about to view were part of South's Sustainable Improvement Plan presentation submission to DESE. The videos will provide an overview of how the Sustainable Improvement Plan process occurred at South Middle School in response to our current academic standing with the state. Each video includes a member of our SMS staff, and they are also ILT members. Our first video addresses the question regarding stakeholders and who we tapped into for stakeholders and how we started the conversation.
My name's Carrie Agashi. I am the school adjustment counselor here at South. And I'm going to pick up where Nicole had left off, Ms. King had left off regarding the process with the stakeholders. So we met with the stakeholders 2 times last year. We discussed our baseline data. We met at school or through school council. And we discussed our baseline data and how we collectively feel that we could get South students moving forward in an upward trajectory for academics and scores. So we took a deeper dive and the stakeholders had recommendations for TAP 1, TAP 3, TAP 4. Their deeper dive in our conversation really focused around our quality of instruction, addressing the students where they are, where they're at, and being able to move them forward, in addition to addressing the whole student, so their SEL, social emotional learning, as well as their academics, and how to take them where they're at and move them forward. So we had identified some, and then obviously we
Okay, so the next video that you're about to see addresses the portrait of a graduate and how we had the conversation across all of the teachers and departments at South of what we wanted to see or what our students would be as a graduate at South, leaving, going into high school. So you'll see 2 staff members and ILT members discussing the process and actually outlining the portrait of a graduate, our vision statement. I have a couple questions related to your sustainable improvement plan at South Middle School. And it's in regards to the portrait of a graduate. So I read you created a vision for the future for South Middle School students. Can you share the vision and the process the team went through to develop the vision of the future?
All right, so regarding the process, when the ILT got together to discuss the portrait of a graduate, we really wanted to focus on all of the entire school being included in this. So the different grade levels were broken up and individually got to discuss their portrait of a graduate and the vision for that. So for each team, a gallery wall was created, and each grade level and the specialists also answered the question, are South Middle School graduates are or possess blank. So every team got to include what they felt like their vision was for when our dragons leave us in 8th grade. And then after that, the ILT met and compiled these lists into one main portrait of a graduate.
Go ahead, Brendan. I know you wanted to add on to that response.
Yes, so after this whole process, we did come up with a portrait, and it was for all South Middle School graduates to experience the joy of learning while performing to the highest academic potential, face challenges with motivation, resilience, and perseverance, communicate with confidence, respect, and kindness, interact with the community while showing pride and tolerance, and finally, to acquire the foundational skills necessary for lifelong learning.
The next piece, video that you'll see talks about the root cause analysis and how we use data to really drive down to identify what the issues were at South. How did we get to where we were? How could we turn those issues into positive statements, and how we were going to actually drive change, and coming up with our objectives and our goals.
How were we able to decide on the vision for the future of South Middle School? Did we use data, and what process did we use? Our vision of South Middle School comes from a deep and challenging look at data, coming up with identifiable challenges and existing problems, and then using that information to develop agreed upon high leverage goals. The major goals become the guideposts for our action plan and initiatives. To begin with, our team divided into 4 subgroups comprised of teachers from various content areas and specialties. This heterogeneous approach really encouraged open-minded thinking, and we all benefited from the resources of different disciplines. From those statement points, groups began a process of inquiry, data analysis, and interpretation. A range of varying data sources such as the Vocal Survey, views on climate and learning from MCAS, the MCAS itself, attendance data, discipline data, the TSV, the targeted site visit, STAR reading, and STAR math. All of the data was broken out into subgroups, such as racial, ethnic, students with disabilities, etc. This truly allowed us to discover the needs of all students. From these discussions, noteworthy data point towards assets and challenges. For assets, we already have an established time for daily professional development and department meetings on a regular basis, which would provide opportunity for teacher training, modeling, and support for teamwork and any other training we may decide to undertake. Challenges, marked and prevalent lack of progress in the MCAS categories of partially meeting and not meeting performance standards in mathematics and ELA. A uniform, quality, consistent, assessment-driven instructional practice has not yet been adopted. What followed was a procedure of continuous evaluation of the statement. We were challenging each other and questioning our assumptions. We used a procedure called the 5 whys. One why question led to another inquiry. The resulting postulation would require us to ask, why is it that that is? And on the probe continued 5 times, drilling down until we got to a final problem statement. We called that the root cause. A result of these analyses demonstrated a need for a system of identification and intervention across tiers. More than one subgroup identified a need for more uniform and quality Tier 1 instruction that would reach more students and thereby decrease the numbers of students in Tier 2. The process moved on to turning these 4 problem statements into high leverage goals. We agreed to regularly use data to identify students with specific needs and intervene addressing specific areas. In addition, the adoption of a uniform, quality, consistent, assessment-driven instructional practice would yield results not only for academic success, but provide for a positive sense of self and success at school for all of our students.
Hi, everybody. I'm Lisa Thomas, the assistant principal at South Middle School. In the interest of time, I'm going to attempt to summarize the next video, which would have been Dr. Robinson's, albeit I won't do it quite as eloquently as he would have. But hopefully you heard a common theme of from the root causes and the other things that we did throughout this process. We really identified a lack of consistency and uniformity in our instructional practices at South Middle School. So Dr. Robinson attempted to identify that we all agreed that these were the root causes, these were the issues, and how to go about changing these. And so from here, this is where we came up with our goals, initiatives, and objectives. And so we talk a lot about data-driven instructional practices here with our turnaround practices. And Dr. Robinson, again, would have said it much more eloquently, but in the interest of time, I wanted to summarize that for you. Okay, and moving right along. This led to our goals. So I'm not going to read them to you, as I know that you can yourself. So this entire process led here to these goals, and these are the goals that we hope will drive us, not only now, but in the future. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is John Lynch. I'm the Associate Principal of South Middle School. And this is kind of the nitty-gritty of the actual plan that we decided to go through and adopt and submit to the state. So there are 4 turnaround practices. There is the TAP 1, the leadership, shared responsibility, and professional collaboration. TAP 2 is the intentional practices for improving instruction. TAP 3 is the student-specific supports and instruction to all students, and TAP 4 is the school culture and climate. And again, I know that there's a lot on this slide, but essentially the themes that that we want you to get across is that through a lack of structure, through some ineffective Tier 1 instruction and the lack of effective use of data, that's what put South in the state in needing of support. So from there, again, as some of my colleagues already summarized, we then came up with the problem statements and then the high leverage goals. So at the high leverage goals, essentially what we're looking to do is establish a lot of structures to put in place to support students, to support staff, to support administration, and to support the community at large when it comes to the instruction and the social emotional well-being of our students. So we're going to do that through a variety of different ways. We have 4 major initiatives that we're looking at. So we have UDL, Universal Design for Learning, which we've already started. We have PLCs, Professional Learning Communities. We have the High Expectations Teaching, which is a continuation of a district-wide initiative. And we have, I'm always forgetting one other one. PBIS, thank you. Lisa was going to kill me if I didn't remember that one. She is one of the ones who is spearheading PBIS. Next slide, please. And so from there, we came up with our strategic objectives and initiatives. And again, we are already in the process of doing these, and some of these structures to put in place are going to be the consistent teaming, which we had to take a close look at our schedule. We had to take a close look at how our teachers were meeting and how we could make the best use of time for that. And we have a variety of different benchmarks, which we are already well on our way to meeting. So one example is 50% of grade level educators are going to be organized in consistent teams. We had a training today that is, for an example, that helped facilitate a lot of this work, and that we will continue so we can look at data, student work, and a variety of other things in our PLCs as well. And all right, next. There we go. And for TAP 3, again, the big thing that we're going to be looking at is data. So we want to make sure that we use our WIN block, our What I Need block, to target the students to make sure that we're using the assessment data that we're getting from district-based assessments, from formal, informal assessments as well that's happening during the regular classes. And at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Julianne Andrade.
Hi, everyone. I'm Julianne Andrade. I'm the coordinator of elementary literacy and social studies pre-K to 5 here at Brockton Public Schools, but I am also the district liaison for South Middle School, and my role has been to provide support throughout this sustainable improvement plan process. I participate in Brockton Public Schools' district system of support network that was established by June Saber-McGuire. And what that does is it brings all the liaisons that have been assigned to schools together so we can share the work that we're doing and share out strategies with each other. It also gives me a platform to advocate for South Middle if they need further assistance such as financial, human capital, or curriculum. We have partnered with the DESE System of Support lead, which is Cassell Walker. She has done wonderful work in supporting us with assistance throughout this whole process, and we've relied on her greatly for her expertise. I also am part of the South Middle Greater ILT, and I attend professional development, and if necessary, I help them secure professional development, and I attend the planning meetings. Now, the good news is that South Middle team has finished the plan and submitted it to the state, so my role will be changing a little bit over time. But I will continue to work and support South Middle as they're now in their new role of implementing the plan. And I, look forward to continuing this work with them over time. I do want to call out and acknowledge Jose's work. You have to realize that in the fall we had really taken foothold. We had many meetings, and then of course, the pandemic struck and we were out of school. Under Jose's leadership, along with his assistant principal, Lisa Thomas, and John Lynch, the associate principal, they met all through the spring and all through the summer virtually to continue working on this plan. And I'm looking forward to continue supporting them. I have confidence in this plan, and I can't wait to see their success.
Thank you, Julianne. You're very gracious of you, and I couldn't say enough to thank you and to thank the superintendent and to thank our chief academic officer for their support, and they believe in us and allowing us to be able to do this work, which I hope that you gather from our presentation, that we have truly developed a comprehensive plan, one that is owned by the teachers, owned by the support staff, that was driven by data, that I really think is going to get our students to where they need to be, which is high levels of academic and social and emotional performance. I just stole that poster from somebody. Cassell uses all the time. I think that comes from the George, if I'm not mistaken. And that we have developed this mindset at the school that this is not about blaming anybody for what happened, but really taking a look at it and saying, we all can improve a little bit. And if we all work on improving and getting better at what we do, just imagine what the result is going to be. So that's what I talk about all the time. I told them, I'm new. I don't want to hear about who did, said, or whatever. It's from here on today. This is what the mindset we have. And also want to take the opportunity to thank the school committee, obviously, for their support and continued participation through the pandemic. Mark, who's our local rep, has been there as a visitor and doing other things with me. So I think we went a little long on what we were supposed to present, but I guess any questions that you may have, we'll answer them. And again, I also want to thank the ILT and my colleagues who took time to be here with me today, teachers, administrators, and so on.
All right. Well, thank you all for the presentation and all your hard work. So does any member of the committee have any questions or comments? Mr. Sullivan?
Just one, Josiah. The plan looks real good. What happens now when they're on remote? Are they able to do all this stuff?
I think we are able to do most of it. As Julianne said, most of the planning for this took place while we were already in remote. So we kept in mind that when we came back, there was a possibility that we were going to have to implement it remotely. Just to give you a quick example, today we did presentation in professional development on UDL, which is extremely flexible, which talks to teachers about being flexible about the way they deliver curriculum. So they couldn't have been a more perfect system for us to adopt, a framework for us to adopt than UDL, because it allows teachers the flexibility of how they implement the curriculum while it's still rigorous.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
And Jose, I just want to thank you, the administrator, and the teachers for how hard you work putting this plan together, and your team, especially during this pandemic. The work never stopped. And when the days I was going over the South, when we could go over before March 12th, the sense of pride amongst the staff, and that it's all about the kids and making sure the kids do better. And a lot what you saw in the district review of things we have to work on as far as looking at data has been being done now for quite some time. And I just want to again thank you and your staff for the amazing amount of work that went into this. And obviously we're here to support you. And like you said, it's all about the kids and making sure that we do the best we can to make sure they're successful. So thank you.
No, thank you. And if I haven't said it, I just really want to take a moment and acknowledge the teachers for the incredible amount of work, the incredible flexibility, and for the desire to do well and to be successful. for the children and because of the children and with the children. I mean, this is, as we experience everything new, they've gone above and beyond to make sure they accept and they begin to implement everything that we begin to do. So great kudos to the teachers and the support staff and the central office staff that's supporting us.
Yeah, I just wanted to comment kind of in along the lines of some of what the superintendent said. Again, I want to thank the teachers for everything that they're doing and all of you for the administration at the school for all the work that's been done too, because not only are you trying to put all this together and look at how to move the school forward, oh, and by the way, let's do it at a time where we're trying this new remote learning and changing how we do everything and how the kids are taught and how they attend school, and still trying to move this work forward. And I think everybody at South deserves a lot of credit for that, because you have hard work to do, and the situation we're in and the type of the remote learning now just makes that work even more challenging. And but you're rising to the challenge. I know I've been to South and talked to you, Jose, and others, and everybody is rising to the challenge at South, and I've seen that and I've heard that from talking to people, and it really is exciting. You have the buy-in of everybody, all the stakeholders, which is huge, because without that nothing happens, right? But everybody's on board, and that's wonderful. And so
thank you.
Again, we know we had the district review recently with a lot of things that have to be worked on, and something that you touched on that I think is the right approach district-wide is, the past is the past. We're talking about how we're moving forward. And you mentioned that in your presentation, and that really stuck out, because I think that's district-wide what we have to do, and the way we have to approach the work that was just presented to us and asked, by Desi for us to do. I did want to ask one question, if I could. You had mentioned, in the presentation, there was a mention of a system of support from DESE. Could you elaborate on that at all a little bit?
Sure, I think I'll be happy to. I don't know if June wants to say something, or you want me to.
The system of support from DESE.
Yeah, what
so
is-
we work very closely with Susan Berglund, who was here last week when the department was here presenting the district review. We also work closely with people who they have partnered with DESE is partnered with, one being Cassell Walker, who's a former principal, a former Boston principal. Actually, Jose had known Cassell in his previous days from Boston. We also work closely with Mary Ann Palmer, again, a retired principal, who is coming in and working alongside our district support. And for instance, Julie is our district level support person for South Middle School and a few other schools. And in a few minutes, you'll hear from Allison and Heather. And Heather's in the Office of Learning and Teaching as well. And she connects with the folks from the department. So we're very interconnected in terms of having a relationship with the department person, the liaison, and then the district level person, meaning Office of Learning and Teaching and other offices as well, that you'll hear from over the next few weeks, because we'll have all 11 of our schools here to talk to you.
Mm-hmm.
And you'll be able to see who the people are that are supporting the individual schools. But I'm so glad that you said this, Jose. I heard you say it, Mark, and certainly the superintendent. It's really the teachers who are driving the work, and thankfully under Jose's leadership, he's been able to put the conditions in place that are allowing this work to really become embedded in the culture of South Middle School.
Right.
So we're connected with the folks from the department just about every single day. We meet with somebody from the Department of Education, and because we have obviously a variety of, many of our schools are or have just submitted plans. So South submitted a plan. This is their implementation year. In a minute, you're going to hear from Brookfield, but the Brookfield, this is their second year of implementation. So it'll be, what you'll hear from them, and their plan is slightly different, but you'll hear some consistencies between those plans too.
Right.
Does that
And I
make
guess, what is it that we're getting, in support from DESE? Like, are they working with us on the plans?
They're working with
on the
us.
professional practice, helping us develop it? Is that, okay. All right,
They're
thank you.
co-leading professional learning. They work directly with the principals and help them to develop their plans.
I
And
see.
they give them feedback. They help even in the final submission of the plans to the department, which I think we just got approval on all of those plans today, is they gave us feedback in order for us to be able to submit it
as I said-
with confidence. No, go ahead, Joseph.
As I say, they always gave us a gentle nudge and a gentle push and gave us the raised eyebrow. We knew we were getting there when members of our ILT would look at me and say, Jose, would Casella approve of this? Have we gone deep enough? Is this rigorous enough? Okay. So that she was always there for us. And so bringing her many years of experience and knowledge and the research they've done. So they were, we could not have done it without their help, to put it very simply.
Right.
Because of their knowledge, their support, being there with us for all kinds of support that we needed.
Excellent. Well, I know that, I'm sure that the rest of the committee would agree we're, behind you and support South 100%. And if there's anything I, as your school committee member, can do to help support you all, I hope reach out anytime. I'm,
We'll call.
with you all the way, and whatever I can do to help support you, just say the word. Any other comments or questions from the members of the committee? All right. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
We're going to hand it over now to Allison Ramsey, the principal of the Brookfield, and Heather Ronan, who, again, I just explained is in the Office of Learning and Teaching.
All right.
Oh, thank you very much. Very good. Thank you. Good evening. Good evening, everybody. Thank you for having us here tonight. As June said, the Brookfield is in the second year of implementation for our sustainability plan. So as you'll recall, we were here last year introducing to you the full elaborate plan like South just did. So we have a little bit of an introduction based on what we did last year. In your packet, in the blue folder, you'll find the in-depth version of what we are going to talk about, but I'm going to give you the abridged version because, sometimes I'm too thorough. So here we go. So in September of 2019, just to give you a little bit of background, the Brookfield was in the 4th percentile in Massachusetts. So because of that, we started our sustainability plan. And that was in February 2019. And as you can see, the picture of the long road, because it's a long road. It's hard work, it's worth the work, but it's long. So what first happened was we had our TSV with Schoolworks, and that was in February of 2019. And they gave us feedback on all the 4 turnaround practices. Schoolworks interviewed the teachers, observed classrooms, and gave us feedback. And in the last page of your packet, you'll see the comparisons between 2019 and the one that they did in 2020. We were fortunate enough to be able to have Schoolworks come back to us right before the pandemic hit. Schoolworks came back the day before we left for school. So we were fortunate enough to get that feedback. But just to remind you what life was like in the Brookfield in 2019, you can see in the ineffective column, we have very high numbers, and the effective, not so much. So the ones that I want to direct your attention to are 1C with the Common Core alignment. You can see in 2019, it was 75% ineffective. And then if you go down to number 8, higher order thinking, 53% ineffective. So I just want you to keep that in the back of your mind for what we're going to do moving forward. So as South explained with the long road, the process is grueling, and with the support from our central administration, with Heather Ronan, who's here with me tonight, Kate Guerin in the SPED department, Jennifer Hunter in the ESL department, and all the staff and faculty at the Brookfield, we conducted the root cause analysis and envisioning the future protocol to develop our turnaround plan. As June had mentioned before, Cassell Walker is our state support mentor, and she works very closely with us. So that was the process that we went through to create our plan. So then, in September 2019, lo and behold, the Brookfield is now in the 9th percentile. So we increased 5%. So that was pretty awesome in 1 year. I was really happy with that. I think I was the only principal in Brockton that wanted to have MCAS in 2020, but I wanted to see how good the kids were going to improve because I thought that they would improve greatly. So I kind of really wish we have MCAS this year. I have my fingers crossed. So we improved 5%. With 1 year, we did implement a lot of our strategies, but we still had a long way to go. So with our implementation with September 2019 to March 2020, you can see our initiatives were all addressed in our PLC and our staff meetings. We had a lot of professional development based on the things that SchoolWorks told us were weaknesses for us, and we developed our turnaround teams. So each staff member joined a turnaround team, and we meet to make sure that we are holding each other accountable as to our implementation and to make sure that we're monitoring everything that we need to do. So as you can see on those sheets, for each turnaround practice, we have a representative from each grade and from special education, from the ESL department, and for the specialists. So we want to make sure we have vertical alignment for these teams. So we did a lot, as you saw in our data. As you know, data drives everything that we do, drives our instruction, it drives our PD. SchoolWorks said that we needed help with high expectations in our classroom. So we were fortunate enough to be able to be in the first cohort of John Safier's High Expectations teaching. I was able to have each one of my PLC facilitators attend this cohort, and that was really great because we were able to roll out the professional development to the staff. So we had some book talks around high expectations teaching. We did our PLC work around these high expectations. And then SchoolWorks came back to give us a follow-up TSV on March 12th. So here we go. This was a year later. So I want to bring your attention to 1C, where now we don't have everything in the ineffective. Now we're 50% effective. So that's great. And also with our higher order thinking, we only have 28% ineffective when before we had 53. When you look at your last page in your notes, you can see exactly the two charts side by side, and you're able to see the comparison. But I was really happy with the growth that the students and the teachers made in 1 year based on all of the information that we had. So TSV, the SchoolWorks department, they give us ratings on the different objectives that we have. So I just wanted to point out a few that were really great for the Brookfield. One of the ones that they pointed out was TAP 1, Strategic Objective 2, using teams and shared leadership to accelerate improvement. In the 2018-2019 school year, we were in the initial phase in the rubric, and we moved up to high developing. So we skipped 2 categories, so that was really awesome. And then for TAP 2, Strategic Objective 1, defining high expectations for high quality instructional practices in the classroom, we were at the initial stage, and we skipped over 2 categories to high developing again. So as you can see, for all of those categories, we improved. Some of them, we skipped 2 levels, some only 1, but still the growth is moving forward, and in 1 year, I'm really happy with that growth. So now here we are, 2021, and now we're in remote learning. So our instructional focus at the Brookfield, ever since we started our strategic plan, was that teachers at the Brookfield would use high order questioning and high expectations teaching to increase the students' depth of knowledge. The teachers all agreed that that's going to be our focus again for this school year. They have found success in in the techniques that they've been using, and they'd like to continue that in remote learning. So how are we going to do that? Well, as I said previous, data drives all instructional decisions at the Brookfield School. I tell the teachers all the time, unless you have the data to back it up, don't come to me and ask me for anything. Give me the data and then we'll talk about it. So we said, all right, so what are we going to do to figure out how we're going to do this in remote learning? So we surveyed the staff. These were the high expectation strategies that the teachers were working on with John Safier. And we surveyed the staff to ask them which strategies they found most successful when we were teaching in person, which strategies they would like to implement in remote learning, and which strategies they still felt they need more professional development on. So it's really important for us, for all the stakeholders, and to get everyone's buy-in, that the staff is all on board with everything that we're doing. So we want to make sure that we're asking the staff for feedback and using that feedback whenever we can. So here were our results. In person, in brick and mortar, they found that persevere and return, Cartomatic, and no opt-out were the high expectation strategies that worked well in their classroom. They ranked them in order of the ones that they wanted to do in remote learning. They wanted to still continue with persevere and return, Cartomatic, no opt-out, and they also wanted to add communicating objectives in student-friendly language. We had started working on that right before the shutdown, and that's all about introducing the standards and the objectives to the students so they know and they have clarity as to where they're headed within the lesson, so that they know if their standards are being met and if they've mastered the skill. And they said that they wanted more PD on clear and accessible criteria for success for students. So teacher clarity, they wanted more PD on how to do that in remote learning. So with that feedback, we, as our ILT team, with Heather and the other people from the district, we looked into that because, as you know, with the cycle of inquiry, everything we do, we need to have research to back it up to make sure that that's a good strategy to use. So the teachers want to do more about clarity. So how is that going to improve student achievement, and what is that going to do for us? So Corwin has a visible learning database, and it's a whole bunch of studies that show how specific influences affect student learning. And so the average impact size is 0.40 for one school year. So they're saying that the average things that we do and the average strategies that we do show an effect size of 0.40. And so any influences over that should accelerate students' learning. That's for 1 year of growth. And when you research teacher clarity, it has a 0.76 effect size, so it's labeled as considerably potential to accelerate the student's learning. So that's really great because the teachers may want PD in something, but if it's not going to accelerate the student's learning and it's not going to help, then really, what's the point? So this was really good that when we did this research, clarity is something that's definitely going to help the students. So we needed some resource to use for our PLCs because really this remote learning is new for everybody. So we found, with the help of June's team, the Distance Learning Playbook, and this is all about, it's a professional resource for teachers as to how to do high expectations teaching with remote learning. It really is effective teaching no matter if it's brick and mortar or if it's through Zoom. But Douglas Fisher, he's one of the men who worked on this book, and he talks about how when we first got into the pandemic in the spring of 2020, we were crisis teaching. We didn't know how to do this, but now we have some experience and we have a purpose and an intent. So we have an opportunity now to accelerate the students' thinking while focused on equity. And in the Brockton Public Schools, equity is a huge thing. We want to make sure that all of our students are receiving what they need for their education. And Douglas Fisher speaks about that in this playbook. So what are our next steps? So the teachers are going to receive professional development in how to incorporate high expectations teaching and higher order thinking tasks in remote learning, because we want to honor our plan, and our plan says that we are going to be focused on high expectations teaching and higher order thinking tasks for the students. So we need to figure out how we're going to do that in the remote world. BC has created this Bloom's digital taxonomy, in which it shows how to do Bloom's higher order thinking skills in the digital world and with digital tools. So the teachers at the Brookfield are going to be receiving professional development in Bloom's with digital taxonomy, and they're also going to be receiving the remote learning higher expectations teaching through the playbook. So how are we going to monitor this? Currently, we have a weekly meeting with our district team, and we're also inviting our state system of support representative. Her name is Cassell Walker, as I said previous. Every month, our school-based turnaround teams that I showed you before with the vertical alignment, they're working together. And we're currently collecting and documenting our evidence to support our objectives and our benchmarks. So in a nutshell, that's where the Brookfield is. And this, as June said, this is year 2 for us. So the work is continuing, and our focus now is how can we promote and honor our plan through remote learning, and how can we best support our teachers.
I just want to take a second to really highlight the work that Allison and her staff and her ILT have done. As you can imagine, you put a plan in place with one vision in mind of being in school, brick and mortar, and now it is up to Allison, her team, and her teachers and students to reimagine how this can look differently in this remote setting. And they have done a tremendous job of making those connections really, really explicit to the teachers, with the teachers, to say, yes, you can do this, this is what you've been doing, and they have been doing a tremendous job at that school to keep the momentum going, because they have the data to support that what they're doing is working, and they're excited to continue that work, and they would not have been able to do this without Allison and her leadership team and those teachers. So.
Okay, thank you very much. Are there any questions from the members of the committee? Mr. Sullivan?
Allison, just not a question, but a comment. I just wanted to say how enthusiastic you are. You can tell that it's really working.
It's all about the leader, and if the leader of the school believes it's going to work, and the leader portrays it working, and the leader is excited about the work, the staff is too. So that's super important, and thank you for recognizing that.
Nice job. Nice. Thank you.
And I want to add that, this work was all done when, nobody knew we were going to shut down. And like Heather said, the amount of work the teachers have done with the administration, pivoting from brick and mortar to remote learning. And again, this is across the district. And with the work we have to do, and for teachers to pivot quickly to remote learning within, it was different. Obviously, we knew we were scrambling in the spring, in March, and then from March to September 1st, which is not a lot of time, to be able to put in place what is in place now. Again, nothing will ever replace in person, but what the teachers have been able to do, and again, and I've said this several times, this is the hardest that they'll ever work. And working much harder than I am to make sure our kids are getting what they need in this remote world. And in regular times, to be a district to go from in-person to remote, and you asked me back, what would it take? I'd say it'd be a 2 to 3 year process to a district this size to switch from in-person learning to fully remote. And what has been done in again, a 6-month period is truly amazing. So, again, that's in the entire district, but the work that's been done in turnaround schools has been amazing, and again, led by the administration and the teachers all buying in and the hard work that they've been doing. So, thank you, Allison and Heather. Thanks for coming tonight.
Anyone else? Mr. Minicello? Tom, thank
Two microphones, neither one of them working.
Thank you. Could you just tell us some of the specific effective sort of new strategies that are making, that you see making a difference, just so that we have a practical feel for it?
Sure. So the John Safir High Expectations is all about growth mindset and getting the students to believe that they can learn and having high expectations for the students in the classroom. And one of the examples is persevere and return. That's one of the strategies that John Safir focuses on, and that's one of the ones that we do at the Brookfield. And that's all about when a teacher asks a student a question and they don't know the answer, they give them a chance to think about it with wait time, and they say, I'll be back to you, so they know that they're on the hook for this question. The high expectation is there. So then they'll go to another student, they'll talk about something else, and then they'll say, okay, I'm ready for your answer. So it's all about having the high expectations in the classroom for the students.
And then, in terms of the staff, what are some of the, I guess, effective new strategies that to assist the staff themselves?
Sure. So at the Brookfield, we were fortunate enough to partner with the union last year, and we signed an MOA so that the teachers came in 10 minutes early, and their recess time was covered by a recess aide. So we were able to have common planning time with the teachers that we didn't have before. So while the kids were out at recess, that half-hour block, the teachers were able to have common planning time to work on high expectations lessons and incorporating that into their teaching. That was a new thing that the Brookfield didn't have before. So that helped tremendously for the collaboration.
Great.
Yep.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And if I could jump in too, first, thank you and congratulations on the progress that you've made as a school.
Thank you.
And we saw earlier, obviously, South that is at the beginning, and so just in a year, you've made significant progress. So it really does show that, yes, as you say, it's a long road, but it's obtainable, it's doable. And I also wanted to say, the superintendent, as well as yourself, and Mike always doesn't take enough credit for how important leadership is. But it's really, everybody has to, if the leadership is excited about it and believes you can, and then the teachers, and then you just mentioned, the students believing they can. Everybody has to buy in, but it really is important that, as the leader, you believe it. And so, again, but also, one person doesn't move this work forward. It really is, you got to have everybody, the buy-in from everybody. It's so important. But so anyway, I just wanted to throw that out there and, congratulate you and your team and the kids and the parents at Brookfield on the progress they've made in just a year. And we look forward to, seeing what else, what comes next. So
Thank you very much. Thank you.
anyone else? Thank you. Okay. All right. Do we have any other matters to come before curriculum? Anybody? All right, then, seeing no other business before the curriculum, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. We have a motion to adjourn. Properly seconded. I'll call the roll. Mayor Sullivan?
Yes.
Okay, D'Agostino is a yes. Ms. Asak?
Yes.
Mrs. Mendez? Mr. Minicello? Mr. Rodriguez?
Yes.
Mrs. Sullivan?
Yes.
Mr. Sullivan?
Yes.
All right, curriculum is adjourned.